Hi, good morning, good afternoon, greetings. I'll say that. And thank you for joining me for this week's edition of Friday Soul Call. If you'll remember, we were talking to Angela, who had an abortion in 1993, and we explored a number of things. By now, and I'm sure many of you have already seen part one, but I had to bring her back because I wanted her to walk us through, and maybe we could walk with her through that experience, what she felt like. We ended on her saying she cried all the way there, she cried all the way back, and yet even en route, knowing that it was wrong, she felt compelled to do it. What I thought was interesting is what compelled her to do it, and that is she did not want to be known for being pregnant by a particular person. I mean, think about that. So we're going to pick up there, and then we're going to talk about what happened as you headed to the abortion center. So let's talk about what was it that made you feel that your abortion was justified because you disliked the person that you got pregnant by.
Well, I never thought it was justified. I just thought that,
Well, let's call it a solution. How about that?
yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Um, I just wanted to be done with it. I was already not wanting to be with my husband, and so just getting rid of that, just thinking I was just gonna wipe him and everything out of my system, and that clearly wasn't what happened.
Wow. So did you stay married after that?
No.
Okay. So that was a divorce you got. I bought. Okay.
Yes, ma'am.
So Angela, we could spend about 4 weeks plowing through the soul of this little girl who, even though she grew up to be a woman to do with her mom what her mom was doing, ended up being a lot different. It seems to me that you're a lot different from that. You didn't want that for your life.
Yes, ma'am.
Is that true? Is that so?
That's true.
How did you feel when your mom was with these men in your house?
Well, I really didn't. I knew they were there because her door was shut, but I really didn't see them because I spent a lot of time with my grandmother. But I knew that there was men in the house.
Wow, that had to be something. So let's go to, you're in the car and you're weeping on the way to getting this abortion. And so you said you were crying. Why were you crying?
Just because I knew that I wasn't supposed to be doing it. I really knew, but I just did it. And I knew, but I knew it was wrong. I absolutely knew it was wrong.
So what were you? Because something like that changes you. People think it doesn't, but it does. It changes you, and effectively changes you forever, because you never forget that you took a life. Yes. You don't. I don't care who you are. I've talked to hardened criminals. I've talked to police officers. I've talked to soldiers, and they've all said, "Yeah, but you don't forget." So let's talk about, you're driving back home, and now you're crying. Is that regret or sorrow, or were you in physical pain?
So just hearing it, because what it is, can I be a little?
Yeah. This is Friday Soul Call.
Yes, ma'am. So when I was on the table, I could literally hear the vacuum
sucking your baby out.
Yes, ma'am. And that was so horrible. But I couldn't stop it at that point because they had already gave me the medicine, but I just felt like my life was sucking out with that.
So while you're on the table, you're going through this procedure. You're murdering a child. What would you say was the attitude and the demeanor of the people performing the abortion? I mean, were they affirmative? Were they disinterested? Were they aloof? What would you say?
Yeah, they just came in, gave me the medicine, went out, waited for it to start aborting, I guess what it was doing. They came in, it was like it was a normal day for them. They came in, laid me down, and did the procedure, left, never a comforting or nothing, just in and out like cattle, because there was other people, other girls, women there, but it was like cattle herding in and out. It was, I would never tell anybody to do that. I would say get a lot of counseling if you even thought about it, because it was just horrible. And now I feel like there's still an empty place.
That's where I want to go next. So here we are. How many years later? You're talking 93. We're in 2022, about to be 2023. So
Mhm.
we're talking about what, 20 years almost,
Yes, ma'am.
19 years. And how often have you revisited that moment over the last couple of decades?
At least every year
Around the same season,
around April, May.
which is when it happened.
Yes, ma'am.
And so when you now, does anything trigger it? I mean, is it a movie? Is it a friend? Is it what? What triggers that memory?
I don't know. It just comes back. It just comes up
Hmm.
like clockwork. It just comes up. So I don't know what it is.
Oh, and is that what's bothering you now?
Yes.
That it won't stop?
Yes.
Have you ever talked to God about it since you've been saved?
I repented what I thought was repentance. I haven't really heard from him.
Hmm.
So I've never had a visitation or anything like that. So I just figure he's very angry.
You think he's still angry with you?
I think he forgave me, but I think that he's angry that I killed his generation.
I think he's, I don't know that anger might be accurate, but I can honestly say that God is pretty much disappointed with the whole abortion issue. And he gives me the word disgusted. He's disgusted with the fact that because it's immaterial, because we're talking about cells and we're not talking about brick and mortar or some sort of product, that we think that it stops right there, and that the cost of loss to him is huge. And I'm sure that that's what he feels. I can honestly tell you that. And but as far as holding a grudge, I don't think God is holding a grudge, because that would be kind of futile. He doesn't really do futile things unless you have really done something that he can't work around. So you've talked to him, you repented.
Yes, ma'am.
Did he? And you say he didn't respond.
No, ma'am.
So what is it that what you want him to do? What would make you feel like you and God are at peace?
Speak to me.
Had he ever spoken to you before?
Um, Not the way everybody says that they hear from him. I don't
Hmm.
think. No, I've seen like signs, and when I've been depressed or something, I would. Well, one time I was depressed, and I seen it was really cloudy, and I seen the sun. The sun
Hmm.
came out, and then it went back down, and that was just to me
Hmm.
a sign of hope.
Hmm.
But
So do you think you're punishing yourself?
I think I'm having trouble letting go.
Hmm. And what trouble? You keep reliving it? Is that what you're saying?
Yes, ma'am.
Because I think that self-forgiveness is important. When you go through something like that, you are the one who wants to punish you. God isn't punishing you. He's already done what he's going to do. But you are the one, and somehow or another you've tied him not speaking to you with constantly punishing you. And since he's not punishing, you're doing it to yourself. And even every year, it is very difficult to suffer a traumatic death and not expect to relive it again and again and again. That reliving is going to happen. But let me go back and say this: are you born again?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, so if you're born again, then that means it's forgiven. God is like, take me at my word. You are forgiven. Now, just because your soul has yet to be cleansed from all that brought that decision into existence, that doesn't mean God hasn't forgiven you. One of the reasons that you mentioned not hearing him, before you got here, did you hear God?
I knew that I never had seen you before until 2017, and I was on the verge of taking my life, and you popped up on my screen, so I knew that it had to be God because
Mhm.
I was telling him that I didn't want to go to church no more.
Mhm.
I was done, and I started, going through the Facebook, and
Mhm.
I seen one of your sermons, and it just caught my attention. And then I seen one. Um, Apostle Ashley has made a statement about you had a window and you had a time
Mhm.
to be here, and I thought that was directed to me,
Mhm.
and so I went into prayer, and then I just left my second husband and
You
came
left
here.
him. He didn't want to come. Are you still
He's been
married?
back and we're still married.
Okay.
He's
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 been.
working
Mhm.
working on it.
Well, you just continue to pray,
Yes, ma'am.
because God will finish it. Now let's go back. You snuck something in on us here. Did you all hear what she snuck in on us? She snuck a little something up here in on us. So you were contemplating suicide. Why?
Because my son had went to jail. Um, he's doing 19 years,
Mm-hmm.
and I couldn't be there for him. I felt like I failed him, and I just I was just like, Angela, you are just a mess.
So you were married then?
No, ma'am.
You weren't. Okay, so you weren't married, but you had your children.
Yes, ma'am.
You had two children
Yes, ma'am.
that you were about to leave behind.
3 children.
Three children. You're no, no. Two children you're about to leave behind for one that's in jail.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Angela, one of the things that I would love to say is that first thing I would love to tell you is you need to read your scriptures. And I know that you weren't. You need to read it because one of the things that we don't recognize is that we're born again by the word of God. God's word is how your entire new creation spirit is made, but it comes as a seed and you've got to grow it up. But that's number one. And number two, I'm glad that you're here. I have to tell you, I'm extremely ecstatic about you being here and that you made the decision and that the Lord used me to get you here. Because a few things I'd like to share, if I can. One of the things I want you to know is a promiscuous lifestyle will always make you feel like nothing because you have all these different people's sperm in your body,
Yes, ma'am.
part of your chemistry. They begin to right themselves. I mean, even though the material that carried them is gone, the fluid might be gone, but that DNA stays in you. So you're thinking about all of that. Now that all feeds into your guilt. That feeds into your self-worth or the lack thereof. That feeds into regret where you just want to do it, want to just wipe yourself out. So in your mind, your answer to fixing all of your decisions that you made along the way was to take you off the planet. But understand, some of that may not have been you. And I'm glad that God stepped in and saved you and stepped in and rescued you and sent you here. So tell us quickly, because we're running out of time, what has changed since you've been here?
Just learning more about the prophetic and apostolic because I didn't know anything about that. I am currently in the 3D soul with Chief
You like
Prophet. Yeah, we just started, so yeah, this was like okay. I had already said I wanted to get because I wanted to do. I don't know if this is an outward repentance,
hmm
but I just wanted to get this out there to let people know that that's not the way to go.
hmm
To really talk to somebody, but being here is just it's a different peace that I
hmm
have over my life right now,
And you like you again.
and I do.
Yeah, because you didn't like you much.
Yes, ma'am.
And you get to like you again. So the last thing I'd like to say, because I've heard and I know that when you have abortions, that ghosting in the back of your mind, it never stops. You imagine baby crying, you imagine that something's going to come and get you back because you really deserve it. So, what would you speak to those people who are where you are? I can't let this thing go, but I know that I can't reverse it or undo what I did. Speak to them and tell them what you feel.
So whenever you feel like that, the
Like,
thing to do would be to pray and just continue to talk to God and let God just come over you and heal you from the inside out.
do you feel that's what happened to you? Do you feel like you're finally relieved of this burden?
Yes, ma'am. I'm getting there.
You're getting there, but you know it's going to take a little more work
Yes, ma'am.
because this was done to your soul. It never left your soul. See, that people talk about the baby leaving your body, but that life never leaves your soul. You have to live with it. It's coming to terms with it. It's having peace with it. You know, it's no different than if you had someone die physically. You can't reverse it, whether you were a part of it or not. But that death, just on its own, never leaves your soul. And so I'm happy that you're in 3D. We're glad you're here.
Yes, ma'am.
And I just want you to understand you are punishing you. God is not. He took you as a daughter. You're going to be his daughter. He will treat you as a daughter. He will treat you and love you as a father does. You don't know that. So that's why you don't know what he's doing. You have no framework for fatherhood. None. You don't know. So it is very difficult to accept God as your father when you have no framework for fatherhood, good or bad. So I am of the persuasion that God did talk to you, but because you didn't know him and his word, you didn't know it was God. But he got you here.
Yes, ma'am.
And if he got you here, then that means he's talking. And now you're here to learn to walk with him and for him to talk with you. Can you accept that?
Yes, ma'am.
Then I want you to continue to enjoy 3D. You're going to have a blast. I'm telling you, you're going to have a blast as you uncover some of the things that are going on. I pray that God goes back to that 7-year old who was full of fantasy and imagination, because people do that. I'm sure you watched a lot of television. I'm sure you got those images from other places externally. I want God to take you back to there, because that's where the axe has to go to the root. When you thought you were going to get married in the 7th grade,
Hmm.
okay, then the 8th and 9th grade, and
Yes, ma'am.
then and also take you all the way back to that poor introduction to relationships, male female relationships and sexuality, that brought you all the way to the point that, as far as you were concerned, you were defined by your sexuality.
Yes, ma'am.
We want to fix that. We're going to have you back again
Okay.
so we can talk about that, because I think that our viewers need to understand, and a lot of you are suffering from this, especially in our sexually, we used to call it sexually charged, it's now sexually defined society. And so we're going to talk about that when we get Angela back again in a little bit. But until then, thank you for joining us on this week's edition of Friday Soul Call. And remember, everybody has a soul, but not every soul is in their control. God bless you.